You ever wake up one morning and realize something's changed? Not your back hurting, or your knees cracking when you get out of bed. That's old news. I mean something deeper. Quiet. Private. The kind of change you don't talk about over coffee or during bingo night. It's that feeling, or rather, the lack of it. You used to feel that little spark, even in the smallest ways. A warm glance from your partner across the table. A quiet touch on the arm that meant more than words. A moment when your body whispered to you that it was still alive, still hungry for closeness. But now, silence. Like someone turned off a switch inside you. And you wonder, is this just what getting older feels like? Or is something wrong with me? I had this conversation not long ago with a dear friend of mine. Her name's Evelyn. 82, sharp as a tack, funny as hell, still drives herself to the grocery store every Thursday because she says, nobody picks out bananas like I do. We were sitting on her back porch, watching the wind move through her garden. The roses were in full bloom, and she poured me iced tea with just a hint of lemon. And then, out of nowhere, she said, you ever just stop feeling like a woman? I looked at her. She didn't laugh, didn't look away, just sipped her tea like it was the most ordinary question in the world. I knew what she meant. It wasn't about beauty or makeup or fitting into a dress from 1972. It was deeper than that. She was talking about desire, about intimacy, about that spark that used to live somewhere between the mind and the skin. She told me it had been years since she'd felt anything like that. Said her husband, Robert, passed 12 years ago, and she just figured the part of her that wanted closeness had died with him. But lately, she said, I started wondering, what if it's not just grief? What if my body's trying to tell me something? And there it was, that quiet fear so many of us hold. Because here's the truth, friend. When desire fades as we get older, it's easy to brush it off. To say, that's just age. That's just how it is. But sometimes it's not that simple. Sometimes it's not just the calendar changing. It's the chemistry inside us. It's hormones, medication, stress, even illness hiding behind silence. And the saddest part, most people never talk about it. I've met so many folks who've lived decades with someone, shared kids, homes, dreams, and then one day the physical connection just vanishes. Not overnight, no. It's slower than that. One day you stop holding hands, then kissing becomes rare. Then it's been months, years, and the bed is just a place to sleep. And they think it's normal. That it's just what happens when you turn 70, or 75, or 80. But here's what nobody says out loud. Intimacy is not reserved for the young. Desire doesn't have an expiration date, and losing it doesn't always mean you're just getting old. Sometimes, it means your body is waving a red flag. I remember another man, Thomas. He's 76 now, widowed. He remarried in his early 70s to a wonderful woman named Linda. For the first time in years, he felt hopeful again. Connected, but after a few months, he started to pull away. Not emotionally, he loved her deeply, but physically. He told me, it's not that I don't want her. I just don't feel anything anymore. And I don't know why. He was embarrassed. Thought it was his fault. Maybe he was too tired. Maybe he'd just lost that part of himself. Turns out, it wasn't his fault at all. He had low testosterone levels, undiagnosed diabetes, and his blood pressure medication was dampening his drive. 3 medical issues, all treatable, all contributing to something he thought was just old age. After a few months of treatment and talking with his doctor, things began to shift. Slowly, gently, he started to feel like himself again. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today. Not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because you deserve to know the difference between what's natural and what needs care. We don't talk about sex or desire when we talk about aging. We talk about joints and cholesterol, cataracts and arthritis. But not touch, not closeness, not what it means to feel like a whole person. And that silence? It steals something from us. It makes us feel like we're fading when we're really just being ignored. So if you're listening to this and something I said feels familiar, if you've noticed the quiet where there used to be warmth, just know this. You're not broken. You're not alone. And you are allowed to ask questions. In the next part, I want to gently open the door into what's normal as we age, and what's not. We'll talk about hormones, emotions, relationships, and how our medical systems often overlook something as personal and vital as desire. Because the truth is, losing your appetite for intimacy doesn't mean you've lost your humanity. Sometimes it just means your body is asking for help. And friend, Help is not something you ever have to be ashamed of asking for. Growing older, it's a strange thing. On one hand, we get wiser, softer in some ways, sharper in others. We learn to let go of things that once kept us up at night. But on the other hand, our bodies, they start whispering different stories. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet changes that sneak up on us. And the trickiest ones? They're not the aches and pains. It's the things that happen inside, quiet shifts in how we feel, how we connect, how we want. Desire, that invisible thread that used to pull us towards someone we loved, someone we longed for. And suddenly that thread goes limp. But here's the thing I want to talk about today, because it matters more than most people realize. Sometimes that shift in desire is normal, and sometimes it's not. And knowing the difference, that's where the power lies. I want you to think about it like this. Let's say you're 68, or 74, or maybe even pushing 80, and you've been noticing for a while now that you're just not interested anymore. Not in sex, not in touch, not in the late-night cuddles or the quiet hand-holding. Maybe your partner still wants that, or maybe they don't. But you feel like something's faded. And at first, you brush it off. You say, well, I'm not 20 anymore. You say, we've been married too long, maybe that part's just gone. You laugh it off when your old friends joke about what used to be. But deep down, there's a little voice wondering, shouldn't I still feel something? Now let me tell you this, plain and simple. It is perfectly normal for desire to slow down as we age. For men, testosterone levels drop naturally. It doesn't happen overnight. It's more like a dimmer switch than an on-off button. A little less each year. That can mean less spontaneous arousal, longer recovery time, maybe even trouble performing. For women, menopause changes everything. Estrogen drops, and suddenly the body feels foreign. Skin is drier. Sensation shifts. Even touch feels different. And no one warned us about that. Not really. So yes, some decline is natural. Expected. Even gentle. But here's the part that too many folks miss. When that change is sudden, when it's severe, when it comes with other signs like fatigue, depression, weight gain, sleep trouble, or changes in your memory, that's not just aging, that's a signal. I remember one woman, her name was Carol, 73, lived in Vermont. She used to say she and her husband had the kind of marriage that made younger couples jealous. They'd still flirt in the kitchen, dance in the living room, and go away for long weekends like honeymooners. But then one year, it just stopped. No fights, no trauma, just gone. She said, I didn't even want him to touch me. It made me feel guilty because he hadn't changed, I had. She thought maybe it was just age, but something in her gut said otherwise. So she went to her doctor, and what did they find? Her thyroid had slowed way down. Hypothyroidism. It was messing with her energy, her mood, her weight, and yes, her desire. A few months on medication, and slowly, gently, she began to feel like herself again. Here's what I want to say to you, gently but clearly. Losing your desire doesn't make you less of a man, or less of a woman. But it also doesn't mean you have to accept it without question. Because behind that silence could be something your body is trying to tell you. Maybe it's your medication, blood pressure pills, antidepressants, even some pain meds. They can steal away the spark without warning. Maybe it's a hormone imbalance, low testosterone, low estrogen, thyroid issues, even adrenal fatigue. Maybe it's emotional, grief, depression, or loneliness wrapped up in silence. Or maybe it's just that you and your partner have lost the habit of closeness. Not the love, not the bond, but the physical rhythm. And you'd be surprised how quickly a habit can fade when it's not nurtured. There was an older couple at my church, Harold and May. They'd been married 52 years. One day Harold told me, we hadn't been intimate in over 5 years. I just figured we were too old. And then he smiled. Turns out we were just too polite. May had been feeling the same way, but neither wanted to make the first move. They were afraid of rejection, of embarrassment, of trying and failing. So they just stopped trying. But then they talked, really talked, and they started small, holding hands again, sitting closer, watching old movies under a blanket like they used to in the 70s. And slowly they found their way back. So what's the takeaway from all this? It's that your body is wise, but sometimes quiet. It's that your heart still longs for closeness, even if your body isn't sure how to get there. And it's that aging doesn't mean disappearing. Not from your partner, not from yourself. So if you've been feeling that quiet loss, if you've been wondering whether this silence is normal or not, here's what I want you to do. Don't be afraid to ask your doctor. Don't be embarrassed to speak up. And don't accept you're just getting old as the final answer. Because behind those words might be something very fixable. And you, my friend, deserve to feel whole. Deserve to feel connected. Deserve to feel alive. Even now. Especially now. You know, the hardest part about growing older isn't always the physical stuff. Sure, our joints ache a little more. We forget where we left the car keys, or walk into a room and can't remember why. But those are things we learn to laugh about, things we share in good humor with our friends. But what we don't talk about, the thing that truly breaks our hearts, is the silence. Not the silence in the house, the silence in the bed, the silence between two people who used to know each other by heart. I want to talk about that today, gently, honestly, because I've seen what that silence does to people, and I felt it too. It starts slowly. You stop reaching for each other in the dark. Maybe it's because you're tired, or sore, or you just don't feel in the mood anymore. So you roll over, you say goodnight, and you think, it's fine. We're just getting older. But then weeks go by, then months, then years, and one day you realize you've forgotten what it feels like to be held. Not just hugged, not just kissed on the cheek. I mean really held, with meaning, with longing, with the kind of touch that says, I see you, I still want you. And when that disappears, something inside you quietly aches. I once knew a woman named Dorothy. She was 79, and her husband, Cal, had just turned 81. They'd been married for 55 years, raised 4 kids, built a life together from scratch, brick by brick. They were a team. Everyone who met them said, that's real love right there. But Dorothy told me something one day I'll never forget. She said, you know what hurts the most? It's not that we don't make love anymore. It's that we stopped even pretending we wanted to. Her voice cracked when she said it. She wasn't angry, just sad. I feel invisible, she whispered. Like the woman I used to be doesn't live in this body anymore. That hit me hard, because I've heard that same sentence, sometimes in different words, from so many people. Men who feel like they failed their wives because their bodies don't respond the way they used to. Women who feel ashamed that intimacy has become painful or complicated, so they just avoid it. Couples who love each other deeply, but drift apart in the dark. And it's not because they don't care. It's because nobody ever taught us how to stay connected when the rules change. When bodies change. When age rewrites the script. Let me tell you about Frank and Joanne. They were in their late 70s, both healthy, still active, always joking around. But somewhere along the way, they stopped being intimate. Neither one brought it up, but both of them felt the loss. Frank told me, I thought maybe she wasn't attracted to me anymore. I've gained weight. I've got a bum knee. I just figured she'd rather not. Joanne, on the other hand, was thinking the same thing in reverse. I thought Frank wasn't interested. That maybe it was my body. The wrinkles. The sagging skin. I thought, he deserves better. So I didn't say anything. For 3 years, they both felt the same ache. And for 3 years, they both kept quiet, trying to spare each other pain. That's the real tragedy, isn't it? We think we're protecting the other person. But what we're really doing is protecting ourselves from the fear of being rejected. From the shame of wanting something we think we shouldn't want at our age. From the idea that longing makes us foolish or needy or inappropriate somehow. But let me tell you something right here and now. There is nothing inappropriate about wanting to feel loved. There is nothing shameful about needing touch. There is nothing foolish about longing for closeness, even at 60, 70, 80, 90. You're human. That need never expires. So how do we heal? How do we bring intimacy back, not just physically but emotionally, when it feels like so much time has passed? It starts with one brave conversation. A simple, honest, I miss us. Not, what's wrong with you? Not, why don't we do this anymore? Just, I miss the way we used to hold hands. I miss the way you used to touch my back when I walked past you. I miss us. Sometimes that little opening is all it takes. Not to dive straight back into physical intimacy, but to begin the journey toward it again. And if you're alone, widowed, divorced, never married, this conversation still matters. Because the intimacy you long for doesn't always have to come from another person. It can come from you. From the way you care for your body. From the way you speak to yourself in the mirror. From finding small ways to feel sensual, alive, connected to the world around you. I once met a man named Arthur, 83 years old, never married. He said he found intimacy in painting, in music, in prayer, in the way he made his morning coffee. It's not about sex, he said. It's about presence, about being touched by life. And I thought, how beautiful is that? Whether you're partnered or alone, what matters most is this. Don't close the door on closeness. Don't let silence steal your softness. Don't let fear convince you that love has passed you by. Because it hasn't. And it won't. Not if you stay open. You're not too old to want. You're not too old to feel. And you're certainly not too old to be loved, in all the ways that matter. Even if it starts with just holding hands again. Even if it begins with a tearful talk in the kitchen. Even if it means walking slowly back toward each other after years apart. It's never too late. Never too late to whisper, I still see you. I still need you. I still want to feel close to you. You know, when we talk about intimacy in older age, a lot of people immediately think it's just about what happens in the bedroom. But truth is, the road back to closeness doesn't start under the sheets. It starts way before that, at the breakfast table, during a morning walk, in the way we speak to each other, or how we treat our own bodies. We don't need fireworks to feel loved again. Sometimes we just need a little warmth and a willingness to begin again. Let me tell you a story. There's this couple I met a few years ago, Evelyn and Thomas. She was 76, he was 80. They'd been married over 50 years, and Evelyn swore that the last 15 of them had been quietly heartbreaking. They still loved each other. That wasn't the problem. But they hadn't been intimate, in any way, for over a decade. No touching, no cuddling, no kisses on the forehead. Just habits, routines, politeness. Until one day, Evelyn got tired of feeling invisible. She went to the doctor, not to complain about her marriage, but because she had trouble sleeping, was gaining weight, and just felt off. Turns out, she was low on several important hormones, estrogen, progesterone, even vitamin D. Her blood pressure was up. Her thyroid was out of balance. But here's the surprising thing. Once she started treating those imbalances, her mood began to lift, and so did her sense of touch, of connection. Thomas, meanwhile, had always assumed his lack of drive was just part of getting old. But with a little nudging from their daughter, he finally got checked. He was borderline diabetic. His testosterone was low. But most of all, he was struggling emotionally, watching friends pass away, feeling uncertain about his role now that he was retired. Once he began walking daily, adjusting his diet, and even talking to a counselor once a week, he noticed something unexpected. He began reaching for Evelyn again, not in a rush, not for romance, just to be near her. You see, desire doesn't live in just one part of the body. It lives in how we feel about ourselves, in whether we still see ourselves as worthy of being touched, of being seen, of being desired. And that all starts with caring for the whole self, body, mind, and spirit. Let's talk about how we do that. First, the body. Our bodies are older now. Yes, but they're still ours, still capable of joy, still deserving of kindness. When we nourish them well, with whole foods, plenty of water, enough movement, we start to feel more alive from the inside out. It doesn't take a gym membership or fancy equipment. It could be a 15-minute walk every morning, even if it's just around the house or down the driveway. It could be gentle stretches while listening to music you love. It could be a glass of warm lemon water first thing in the morning, just to wake your system gently. Tiny choices repeated daily begin to change how your body feels and how your mind sees that body. Second, let's care for the heart. Connection begins with feeling safe. So many older couples stop talking about affection because they're afraid of embarrassment, afraid of being laughed at, afraid that their partner won't feel the same. But you know what makes intimacy possible again? A safe, simple sentence like, I'd like us to feel closer. No pressure, just togetherness. One small moment can open a new chapter. Sometimes it's a soft touch on the hand while watching TV. Sometimes it's dancing in the kitchen to an old song. Sometimes it's lying next to each other without saying a word, just breathing in rhythm. It doesn't have to be anything more than presence. And presence is powerful. Now third, and this is the one folks forget most, your spirit. Growing older brings grief. Loss of friends, loss of roles, loss of a body that once did more. But it can also bring a depth of wisdom, compassion, and patience that younger folks haven't earned yet. So tend to your spirit. That might mean prayer, or journaling, or sitting quietly under a tree with your eyes closed, or volunteering, using your hands and heart to help someone else. When your spirit feels nourished, you start to shine from within. And when you shine, people notice. Your partner notices, even if they've been quiet for years. Now let's talk about something most people avoid, medical help. I know, it's awkward. Nobody wants to walk into their doctor's office and say, "Hey doc, I haven't felt desire in years. But you'd be amazed how common this is. And how many simple, safe treatments are out there. Men can get their testosterone levels checked. It's a simple blood test. Sometimes it's not even about hormones. It's circulation or blood sugar or medication side effects. Women too, there are options for dryness, pain, or lack of sensation that are gentle and easy. Even couples counseling, just 1 or 2 sessions, can work wonders, especially with someone experienced in aging and intimacy. It's not about fixing something. It's about opening the door again. And finally, be gentle with yourselves. Intimacy doesn't have to look like it did when you were 30. It doesn't have to be fast or frequent or even physical. It can be slow, tender, a shared look, a laugh in the middle of the night, a warm meal cooked with love, a back rub before bed. You define what closeness means now. You get to reinvent it. You've earned that right. I'll leave you with this memory. My grandmother used to sit in her rocking chair every evening as the sun went down. She and my grandfather didn't talk much by then. He had Alzheimer's, and most days he didn't remember her name. But every single evening, he'd walk over, kneel down beside her, and place her hand in his. No words. No need for them. Just warmth. Just presence. Just love in the quietest form. And I remember thinking, if that's what love looks like at the end of the road, then that's the kind I want. So wherever you are on your journey, single, married, widowed, together but distant, know this. You are still worthy of love. You are still capable of connection. And it is never, ever too late to feel alive again. Not because of some grand romance, but because you took the time to care for yourself, to tend your body like a garden, to soften your heart like a song, to open your soul like a sunrise. And in doing so, you became whole again. There's a funny thing about aging that nobody tells you when you're young. They prepare you for wrinkles, for forgetting where you left your glasses, for aching knees and sleepy afternoons. But they don't prepare you for how invisible you can start to feel. Not because the world stops loving you, but because somewhere along the way, you forget to see yourself as someone worth loving. I was sitting on the porch of a retirement home one summer evening, talking to a man named Harold, 86, cane in hand, eyes still sharp as tacks. He had a quiet kind of dignity, the way some older folks do when they've stopped trying to impress anyone. And I asked him, what's the hardest part about growing old? He didn't even pause. It's not the pain, he said. It's that people stop touching you. That answer hit me harder than I expected, because behind it, there was this deep truth. Human touch, love, affection, intimacy. It doesn't have an expiration date. It doesn't become less important with age. If anything, it becomes more sacred. But so many older folks start to believe the opposite. They look at their bodies and only see what's faded. They look at their partner and only see what's changed. They stop trying. They stop hoping. Not because they want to give up, but because somewhere deep down, they've accepted the lie that it's too late. Let me tell you this, it is never too late. There's a woman named Loretta I met at a church potluck. She was 72, widowed for almost a decade. She told me she hadn't been on a date in over 20 years. Who would want me? She said with a little laugh, like it was just a fact of life. But there was sadness behind her smile. 3 months later, Loretta met James. They were both volunteering at a food pantry, handing out canned goods and crackers to folks in need. He offered her his coat when it started to rain. She brought him coffee the next morning. They talked about gardening, then music, then grief. And one day, over peanut butter sandwiches, Loretta looked at him and realized she hadn't felt this alive in decades. They didn't rush anything. There was no grand passion, no wild declarations. But they started taking walks, holding hands. Sometimes they danced, barefoot in her kitchen to old Motown songs. Sometimes they just sat together, watching the birds. One evening, Loretta looked at me and said, I didn't think I'd ever feel that kind of closeness again. I thought love had a retirement age. But it turns out, it was just on vacation. You see, love doesn't care how old you are. Desire doesn't disappear just because your hair turns gray. Intimacy doesn't stop being meaningful just because your body's a little slower to respond. Yes, the expressions of those things may change, but the need for connection, physical, emotional, spiritual, never leaves us. What changes is our belief in whether or not we deserve it. So here's what I want you to remember, right now, wherever you are. If you've been feeling distant from your partner, there's still time to reach out. Not with expectations, not with pressure, just a gentle hand, a warm look, an open heart. If you're single and wondering whether you'll ever feel connected again, say yes to small invitations. Take that walk. Join that book club. Smile at someone in the grocery store. If you've been scared to ask your doctor about what's changed in your body, ask anyway. You deserve to feel well. You deserve to feel whole. And if you've been telling yourself that love and closeness are for the young, I hope you'll tear up that script and write a new one. Because love doesn't retire. Touch doesn't expire. And you are not invisible. Let me tell you one last story. My neighbor, Mr. Howard, was 93 when he passed away. The last few years of his life, he lived with his wife of 65 years, Mrs. Ruth, in a little house with creaky floors and a garden full of sunflowers. Every evening, no matter how tired he was, he'd lean over, tuck her hair behind her ear, and whisper, "You're still my girl." Even when she forgot his name, when Alzheimer's came and took her memory piece by piece, he never stopped saying it. And you know what? Sometimes she smiled like she knew, like some part of her remembered, because love has a language that memory can't erase. So if you've been wondering whether what you're feeling is normal, or if something's wrong with you, here's the answer. It's normal to feel changes. It's normal to have fears. But it's also normal to want to feel alive, desired, connected, at any age. And if you feel like something's off, go talk to someone. A doctor, a therapist, a trusted friend. Because sometimes that lack of desire is your body trying to whisper something important. And other times, it's just waiting for you to notice it again. So tonight, before you go to bed, I hope you do one small thing. Look in the mirror. Really look. Not for the lines, or the age spots, or the skin that's softened over the years. Look for the person who's lived, who's laughed and cried and lost and kept going, who still has so much to give. Whisper to that person, "I see you. I haven't given up on you. You are still worthy of love. And your story's not over yet." To everyone watching, if no one has told you today, you are loved, you are seen, and it is never too late to love, to heal, to feel alive again. So take a deep breath, reach for someone, or reach for yourself. The golden years still hold so much gold. Don't let it slip away. If you found today's conversation helpful and it sparked new thoughts about your relationship, or even helped you reflect on how to reconnect with yourself and your loved ones, don't hesitate to take small steps today. Take care of your health, open up and share your feelings with your partner, and if needed, don't hesitate to seek help from a doctor or a professional. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story or piece of advice. Share this video with someone you love. They might need a reminder about the value of love and connection, no matter how old they are. Thank you for watching, and always remember, love and connection have no age. There's something to be cherished, no matter how much time passes.